Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, this is Yamini Naidu and welcome to the next episode in the power of storytelling. In this episode, we're going to look at how you can stand out in the crowd by persuasive storytelling. So storytelling helps us stand out, and I'm going to show you how. One of the very first things when you're discovering and exploring storytelling is to get a sense of where you are at currently. Because it's such a new way of thinking about business, a new way of being in the business world. So I want to introduce you to a storytelling intelligence model. Two things matter to be a persuasive storyteller. The first is having a purpose. Now, when we think again about the definition of business storytelling is storytelling with a purpose and for results. Now, in business, you meet people who are very purposeful with their storytelling. They know exactly the message they want to convey. And then on the other hand, we get people who have absolutely no idea. They ramble, they take too long, and they don't land their story. The second thing that matters in this model is how engaged is your audience. So storytelling is always about your audience. So does your audience hang on to every word? Do you get repeat requests for your stories? Or are they going, oh, not another story about cricket? Based on these two axes, we meet four kinds of storytellers in business. The first is the avoider. So the avoider completely avoids storytelling. They go, this is business, stick with the facts. So avoiders are very low on purpose and they're not very engaging. The next archetype we meet in business is the joker. And the joker tells lots of funny stories at work. So very, very engaging, but misses a fabulous opportunity to link a business purpose with their message. Now, this archetype, the joker, should be instantly recognizable to you. You might have a colleague, a family member, a friend who's like a joker, who's got all the funny stories. The next archetype we meet in business is the reporter. The reporter is very purposeful with their storytelling. So they go, these are the three messages I want to convey. But they're not as engaging because they use a lot of data, they use a lot of facts and figures, they use a case study in their story. And finally, the fourth archetype we meet is the inspirer. So the inspirer is very purposeful with their storytelling and they are very engaging. Now, when you see words like an inspirer, an inspiring storyteller up on a quadrant, up on a model, some names from the public domain that come to our mind are names like Barack Obama or Oprah Winfrey or Ita Buttrose. Yet when we look at business, when you look at this model again, most of us, our preferred style is reporter because it's safe, it's sticking with the facts, it allows us to talk in detail, it talks to our technical expertise. Yet to get results, to stand out in the crowd, to be persuasive, we have to be an inspirer. We have to be both purposeful and engaging with our story. Yet when you look at a model like this, and I mention names like Barack Obama, President Obama, I talk about Ita Buttrose, we feel the bar is so high. We feel, who am I to be an inspirer? What I want to do for us, looking at this model, is I want to recalibrate. I want to redefine what inspiring is. So traditionally, my first exposure to an inspiring speaker was a motivational speaker. He was up on stage. He was rah, rah, wah, wah. I was only 18, and we all went away thinking, oh, we're inspired. But you couldn't do that in business every day. That may not be who you are. The whole rah, rah, the hype. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to be around. You would be exhausted. So inspiring in a business storytelling context is about connecting with your audience and influencing action, but doing it from a basis of authenticity. So it's about connecting with your audience and influencing action, but doing it from a basis of authenticity. So when we recalibrate, we redefine inspiring, we realize we've all been inspiring. So to be a persuasive storyteller, we've got to lift up from being just a reporter to being an inspirer. And all the tools I'm going to give you in this episode and in other episodes are going to help us to do that. Now, one of the first things we need to get our head around is what makes a story a story. What makes a story a story? So I'm going to share an example and then we'll deconstruct it to go, what makes a story a story? So one of the first things we have to figure out is what makes a story a story. So I'm going to share an example and then we're going to deconstruct it to get our head around what makes a story a story. A young boy was walking to school one day when a car pulled up beside him and a man leant out and said, "Get in the car, I'll give you $10. The boy ignored the man and kept walking. A minute later, the car pulled up again. And the man looks out of the window again at the boy and says, "Get in the car, I'll give you $50 and a bar of chocolate." The boy ignores the man and continues walking. A minute later, the car pulls up and the man in the car says, "Get in the car, I'll give you $100 and all the chocolate you could eat." The boy stops walking. He turns around. He looks at the man in the car and he says, "Dad, you bought a Volvo. You live with the consequences." And that just shows it takes more than chocolates and money to motivate people. All apologies to Volvo owners. That was a story one of my clients shared when he kicked off his conference to talk to his team about how it takes much more to think about employee engagement. We can't be conventional when we think about employee engagement. Now, what makes that a story? So for any story requires three things. It requires a sequence. So it requires a beginning. Let's talk about the young boy walking and, the man coming the first time. It needs a middle, and when that scenario repeats twice more in this story, and it needs an ending. So for a story to be successful in business, it needs a sequence. You always think of your stories as having those three parts, as having a beginning, as having a middle, and having an ending. So what endings do is they land your story. I'm going to give you much more around how you begin, what you put in the middle, what you do in the ending. So this is just like a helicopter view of what makes a story a story. The second thing that makes a story is a story, to be successful, has to be about a specific event. So here we're talking about a specific boy walking to school, a man pulls over, and we hear the dialogue between both of them. So it's very specific. Being specific is the key to being successful with storytelling. It's always also the hardest thing to get our heads around because we think we're being specific when we're not. So I want you to compare these two examples. I could talk about last year I went on a holiday overseas. I caught up with a lot of friends and family. I had a great time, took a lot of photos, probably ate too much, drank too much wine. Now that's not a story just because I'm using a lot of I statements. So compare that with when I go really specific. When I go, last September, I went to Europe for a holiday. I remember one Wednesday morning waking up in Paris and I looked in my handbag and I saw my passport was missing. Can you see how when you go really specific, you're taking your audience to a moment in time? Being specific is so important because it then does the two most powerful things in storytelling. And that's the third thing that makes a story a story. So the first thing was having a sequence, beginning, middle, end. The second thing was being really specific. And the third thing is it creates emotions. It makes me feel something. And it creates sensory data. So sensory data is when you paint a picture. So people can visualize it. When I was talking about Paris and waking up and finding my passport stolen, did your mind immediately just create that visual? Paris, Eiffel Tower, maybe men in berets, passport stolen, handbag. All of that is sensory data. Storytelling is the original virtual reality. And when you paint that picture, it allows your audience to see what you are saying. So those three things, so when you think about the chocolate and the young man and the Volvo car, when you think about that story, sequence, beginning, middle, end, being really specific. Take us to a moment in time. Pretend your audience is a fly on the wall. What happened? And that creates emotion, makes me feel something, and sensory data. It paints the picture. Now, storytelling is such a vast spectrum, isn't it? And these
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.